All right, this is the Saturday Sauna Night podcast. I'm Steve, and I'm excited to be chatting with Danny Hill today, Executive Director of RAMBA, architect of the Marji Gesick course, and
Yeah,
lots of other hats in the outdoors and bike world. So thanks again for meeting with me, Danny. I
problem.
guess I want to start off quick with just if you can talk a little bit about some of the history with outdoor trails, mountain biking trails in the Ishpeming and Negaunee area. Um like how far back does that go, like being like an official, entity that people can go and access? And
Well, we initially started, I think this summer will be 35 years that we initially started Ramba. There was a handful of us. We started out at the country village. Paul Argol, who has since passed away, was one of the co-founders and kind of got the ball rolling with myself and Glenn Lurley and Carol Jackson and a couple other people. And for the longest time, it was kind of Rambo was kind of under the radar. We just kind of built trails out of necessity because mountain biking was kind of new and there was no place to really ride. So a lot of our trails were, I guess nowadays you'd call them bandit trails. But since then, we've become much more official, have land use agreements with the city of Ishpeming, the city of Negaunee, a few local landowners. So made things a lot more legitimate as far as an organization. And now, before it was basically a summer thing, but with the advent of fat bikes or snow bikes, whichever you like to call them, it's pretty much a year-round thing right now that we do.
yeah. Yeah, and I was going to ask about that a little bit later too with the how things work in the winter. So, um when I first started checking out the trail, so I grew up in Ishpeming, and I rode my bikes around as a kid, and but mountain biking, like you said, it wasn't that big of a deal yet, at least in the public eye. um you know we weren't There weren't crowds of people and tourists coming up to ride trails in the UP, really. um and then after living away for a short time and coming back in like 2015, 2016, and seeing just the boom that's happened in Marquette County and other areas of the UP, it's amazing. One thing I see with the Ramba trails is you guys have really, it seems, worked to sort of embrace the some of the history in the area, and the ruins of the old mines you can see in sort of working that into the architecture of the trails. Can
Yes.
you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. We're fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know which is the right term, that, we had the caving grounds from the mining era. And a lot of that property that is now pretty much Ramba was considered caving grounds and was off limits to the public. It was all fenced off at times. And it is since now they've opened up a lot of the property, deeming it safe, but there's still not the infrastructure, for the cities to, put in housing. There's not sewer lines or water lines or power. So it's kind of given us a green light to build trails in that area. And there's so much to see there. The old foundations of schools, hospitals. There used to be a golf course there. And we've made it a point to try to showcase some of those old foundations. It just adds a little different flavor to the mountain bike trail system.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's really cool. And then of course, this is separate from Rambo, but you have the Iron Ore Heritage Trail running through there as kind of a main hub, for bikers and runners. And skiers and that sort of thing too, with lots of interpretive signage. And yeah, that's really
Yes.
great that you guys been able to work with that. That might actually be a good segue into just there's been a lot. I feel like a lot of different people have talked to you over the years about Marji Gesick, and of course Todd with 906 Adventure Team. But um, going off that theme of kind of working with that history and sort of incorporating that into the trails, how did that influence designing the course for the Marji?
Well, the Marji, was kind of a spin-off. We started with um, the Polar Roll, and it was kind of a big success. And Todd and I were having coffee one day and said, well, what are we going to do for the summer? And I said, well, I've got this trail in mind that I've ridden a lot of parts of it, or I've ridden all parts of it, but not at all at one time, and tried to piecemeal it together and to make one continuous 100-mile trail. And Ishpeming and Nagani is all of RAMBA is pretty much all hand built, and to have that as the finish for it really made it kind of special. Being the Marji Gesick, he was kind of the founder of iron ore in the Ishpeming Nagani area. It was a good fit, and having all of the the foundations, the old fenced in areas of the caving grounds, the mine pits and stuff like that, it was just a natural fit. And the Marji Gesick is kind of taken on a life of its own, right from the very beginning. Our board initially said, we wouldn't get anybody to show up for some kind of race like that. Now, the race fills up in minutes after, registration opens up. So it's really turned into something special, and it's kind of put, Ishpeming and Nagani on the map.
So you talk about the trails being hand built. So, I mean, you're working with pretty rugged terrain, obviously. So when you say hand built, I mean, when you're building trail, you can't typically get big equipment in there, right? Like you're talking like people with shovels and
Yes,
stump
Mad Dogs,
grinders
picks,
and yeah,
axes.
yeah.
We tried to leave, all of the trees, foliage, and everything as untouched as possible, and still, work our trails through there. And a lot of our trails, people say there's so much climbing, but a lot of our trails there's some beautiful views showcase, some of our, the Teal Lake area and Suicide Hill ski area and stuff like that, is really kind of a scenic area, I guess you would call it. So we've tried to incorporate a lot of that into our trails, just to show that part of it off.
So when it comes to trail building, you talked a bit about, kind of having the green light to work with that whole area, whether you want to call it Old Town or the former cave-in grounds, but that whole area between Ishpeming and Nagani. But what led to the other segments, the stuff that's south of Business 28, and then the section up by El Qual? And
yeah, it's just to keep adding to our system. I think we now have like 72 miles of mapped and signed trails, and it's easier for our club to keep the amount of landowners to a minimum, so we're not asking for permission from so many different entities, that it makes it kind of easy for us, insurance wise and everything else, to keep it as limited as possible. And the mining company has been very good for us, giving us leeway, certain areas that we can build in. When RAMBA, I can't remember how many years ago, John Cornyn was the city manager of Ishpeming, and we worked with him to get the land north of Teal Lake that is now, part of all qual. And, we still plan to build on the north side of Teal Lake at some point to expand our system over there. There's a lot of, beautiful terrain for building trails there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a gorgeous area. So a lot of the stuff that you talked about, cliffs being kind of one of your main landowners you work with, but a lot of the stuff that I guess it would be considered the Hill Street system that
Yes,
sort of works its way around those mine lakes, Angeline, Sally, Cedar. That's pretty much all mining property, right?
that is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And initially, a lot of that land, Norm Ulala was instrumental in building it used to be part of the Suicide ski trails.
Yeah.
And that you'll see a lot of that in the, Hill Street area near Suicide. I mean, they still use some of the trails near the jumps there for cross-country skiing, but a lot of the land up in the Hill Street area and in between kind of got pushed by the wayside once all qual opened up for skiing. So we've been trying to utilize some of that now, mostly for winter riding, for the polar roll and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I was gonna bring that up because now it seems like the last couple of years, well, this past year in 2022 and now this coming winter 23, polar roll is pretty much exclusively on the RAMBA system.
Yes.
And I rode it this past year, the mass start event, and it was one of my first times riding that Hill Street system, and I thought, well, this lives up to its name.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
aptly
go
named
ahead.
for.
Yeah. You talked a bit about the trail building and building by hand, like manually, digging out roots and also kind of working around the natural landscape and incorporating trees and roots and rocks and things into the trail. But you said it's kind of a year-round venture now, right? With the fat tire biking and
Yes.
how that's really taken off. So can you talk a bit about how I guess how the system looks in the winter and sort of how you go about, deciding which trails are even going to be able to be groomed or, maintained during the winter for biking and snowshoeing and stuff.
Right. Well, we started the SBT, the snow bike trail. I'm guessing it was in 2015, maybe 2014, 2015, which was, kind of a short, small loop. But it was spots that we knew we could get a snowmobile through. And, we were kind of on a shoestring budget as a club, so when I first started grooming it, I purchased a machine myself, and it was my own personal machine that I used to groom. And from there now, thanks to some grants that we received and funds that we received from the Polar Roll and the Marji, we've been able to upgrade our equipment. And since we have more equipment now, we've expanded our trail system. A lot of it, on the south side of Business 28, or otherwise known as the Hill Street area. And it's a evolving process. We, keep adding trail system as we can. And, we purchased Rokon, which is a 2-wheel drive motorcycle that we can get through the tighter single track stuff. But we're kind of at the mercy of having enough snowshoers and stuff, because it won't go through, like this past weekend storm.
Mhm.
We had to count on some of the snowshoers and stuff to get some things packed that we could get through there. But we keep adding as much as we can. We're kind of, I think, at a saturation point now that, 30 to 35 miles of trail, snow bike trail, is a lot to take care of.
Mm.
And, I've been fortunate so far this year that, I've had some volunteers come out and give me a hand. But to do that by yourself, it's, takes like 2 days to do the whole system, and it's about 6 or 7 hours at a time to
Yeah.
complete the whole system.
Well,
And our weather is so fickle here that we could get dumped on 2, 3 days in a row, or we might not get snow for a week at a time. So
yeah, and I wanted, I mean, that's maintaining that much trail when it's so weather dependent. Like, of course, this past weekend, for the Christmas holiday, we had, you know, temperatures in the teens and gusting winds and, feet of snow. And now today it's in the low 40s outside and everything's getting soft again. So I mean, I don't know. That seems like quite a tall order to maintain,
it,
but
it really is. I mean, this morning I left at 8 o'clock this morning from here and went and groomed, and I just got in the door like half an hour ago from
okay.
grooming. I had, 4 other guys come out and give me a hand today. Fortunately, they're on vacation this week and gave up one of their vacation days to come give me a hand, to get everything packed down and smoothed out before it freezes now, because, tomorrow it'll be a whole different ball game. Everything will be rock solid.
Yeah.
We got everything smooth today, but if people stay off of it, it'll be stellar tomorrow. But there's some that just, be it that they traveled so far, they just have to get out today or whatever. But it is winter. It's one of our tougher things to, keep up with.
Yeah. Um, wanted to ask too, I mean, you see, as I think as things like snow biking and stuff become more popular, this seems to be more um commonly understood and promoted. But I guess what are a couple quick tips for people who are, coming up here and they want to ride and they have limited time, and based on the weather, what are some things they need to look out for?
Well, the biggest thing I think is tire pressure is the number one thing for snow biking. If it's soft, you got to let the air out of your tires, as make it big a footprint as you can, so you're not, breaking through the crust. And I mean, that's the major thing. A lot of foot traffic is what really destroys the trail.
Mm,
Calling it post holing, it just
yeah.
doesn't make
And
it good for
you're
skiing
talking
or.
people just hiking in boots without snowshoes or anything, hey?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a major problem. That and dog owners not picking up after their pets
Mm,
um, gets to be a little annoying at times. But we try to keep the trails up, every day as best as possible. It's, days like yesterday when it was, 40 degrees, there's not much we can do with the trails actually to make them rideable or hikeable or anything like that. We ask
mhm.
in days like that if people could just, go out, if they want to get some exercise, go out and snowshoe.
Mm,
Snowshoe is probably the best thing for our trail system.
yeah. I was gonna ask that. It sounds like snowshoeing is kind of a good all around safe bet. You don't have to necessarily be concerned with the conditions as much.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we really like to see the snowshoers. In fact, we've put in 3 signed snowshoe loops now between Ishpeming and Negaunee that we ask people, they're all signed with our blue snowshoe signs and arrows. And, once we get them to snowshoe through there, then we can get through with our Rokon and smooth things out. And they can be used also for snow biking at the same time.
Mm,
So kind of a win-win situation for us,
nice. That's good. Um, I guess just a couple more things dealing with Ramba, and then if we have some time, I wanted to chat a little bit about some of the bike packing stuff we had you had talked about.
Yeah.
So if people want to get involved with Ramba,
Hmm.
what's the best way? Because I've been out riding and I've seen it looks like you've kind of transitioned from um like donation boxes and stuff, like a lot of trail systems do, to just kind of like posters with a QR code or like a link where people can.
Right. We don't really have a membership anymore.
Yeah.
We ask people to donate if they, enjoy the trails and, feel that, it's a positive thing for the community. We don't want to, I don't know, be out there beating the drum for money. We run on a really tight shoestring budget. We don't really have, paid employees per se. And so we do the best we can with what we get. And, every little bit helps. And everything that we get goes right back into the trails. So it was kind of Carol Jackson, who was one of our founders. It was his dream that if you showed up to ride, basically you were a RAMBA member.
Mm.
And we also have what we call our Facebook RAMBA Trail Crew page. And anybody that is on Facebook and would like to be part of the RAMBA Trail Crew, we look for those people, in the spring for trail cleanup, in the fall after the leaves come down, and then in the wintertime, after big windstorms and stuff where we have trees come down, we ask them to come out and give us a hand wherever possible, or they have the opportunity to adopt a section of trail that they'll keep up, throughout the summer, whether it has to be trimming branches or weed whacking ferns or whatever.
Sure.
But, and that's been a big help for us the last few years.
That's great. That's so it's, I mean, it seems like it's pretty easy then for people to be involved and volunteer if they wish, and
yes, exactly,
stay active with the trail system. That's great. All right. I wanted to chat a little bit about bike packing, because it's something you brought up when I initially contacted you about doing this interview and this podcast. So I guess I'm curious if you got to still do that trip you had talked about with the weather the way it was.
Yeah, we didn't get to do it this week.
Okay.
Mother Nature just kind of, kicked us to the side on that one with all the snow and everything. So yeah, we've kind of postponed that one. Looking forward somewhere down the road here to get at it. But yeah, it was just to go out there and, I didn't know the route myself. Somebody else was planning it.
Okay.
But it sounded fun. But yeah, the back roads and stuff like that, they're the last ones to get taken care of. So, but that's one of my passions. Since I did the Tour Divide in 2011, bike packing is my kind of fun thing to do. That's what I look forward to every year.
So when you're planning out a route like that, I mean, you're probably typically, I mean, I gotta imagine, is it a combination of like ATV trail, forest roads, like what?
Yes, all of the above. There's a couple different programs I use. It's called Topo Fusion.
Okay.
And that's been very helpful and works really good for designing routes. You kind of draw it out and piece it all together and kind of zoom in to see if it looks anything rideable. And I mean, sometimes you get out there and you push your bike for several miles, and other times it's, great going. So we've got some established routes. We usually do 3 for sure a year, one in the spring, one at the summer solstice, and then one in the fall.
Okay.
And those are pretty much the same route every year. But then we also do some, overnights or a couple day trips like that. It's a lot of fun. It's just a way to get out and see the country, and it's pretty low key.
Yeah. This might be kind of a loaded question, but what kind of a bike do you take with on a trip like that, and how do you go about packing everything you need? And
yeah, it's their first time out, you pack way more stuff than you need. It's surprising how little you can get by with, for a 4 or 5 day trip. My wife and I did a trip a couple summers ago. It was the Idaho Hot Springs Loop. Was 525-mile loop, and we averaged about 50 miles a day, and it took us about 10 days to do it. And but it was amazing. There was 50 hot springs on the loop. We sat in a different hot spring every night on the river. It was just gorgeous.
Wow.
And it was just, just a route that somebody had planned out, and I copied the GPX and we followed it, and it was just amazing. But everything, like when I did the Tour Divide, I sewed all my own bags, and I had a fully rigid hardtail mountain bike, and it worked really well. I didn't have any real issues, and it was just an experience of a lifetime.
So I know you said, you guys are postponing this trip you had talked about, and you weren't the one planning it, but that's that seems like a whole different level, like trying to plan a trip like that in the winter on bikes.
It is very challenging. It's you know, sleeping bags are, I have a minus 20-degree bag, and instead of a tent, I use a bivy sack.
Okay.
In the winter time, it takes up less room on my bike because my sleeping bag takes up so much more room. It's so much bigger. But you know, it's you have to be a lot more cautious in the wintertime as far as the way you dress. You always have to have a set of dry clothes, because I don't care how good you do, you're gonna work up a sweat sometime during the day. So you got to
Yeah.
make sure you keep your clothes dry, your feet dry. So that's a big thing to consider. And a lot of places that we go are remote with very little cell service, so you're not going to get anybody to come and help you if they even
Right.
find you. So
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like, I mean, that sounds like the ultimate adventure though, being able to do that sort of a trip. And
it is fun, and we're fortunate here. We, Ishpeming, Nagani, Marquette, or Marquette County is got a huge cycling community, and you know, being there's so many bike shops, but everybody gets together. I mean, most of the guys I bike pack with either work at a bike shop or one of the breweries, one or the other, and it's just a great group of people to uh, adventure with.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's such a unique spot. I mean, um, and to see the bike community kind of flourish as it has in the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years, and kind of put Marquette and Marquette County on the map, for people coming to mountain bike or fat bike or do other outdoor sports like that. That's really cool.
Yes, it's really taken off. I would say, especially since around 2010 on, it's really grown exponentially. And like I said earlier, with the advent of snow bikes and fat bikes, now it's 12 months out of the year is cycling
Right.
in County. And I think Marquette County kind of has led the way in snow biking, ever since Aaron Peterson's Cold Roll took off, the
Yeah.
movie. It definitely put a mark on Marquette or Marquette County, for snow biking.
Yeah. That's such a different, you get such a different perspective on being outside and these trails that you might have ridden in the summertime or whatever, and being able to go out and do it on a bike in the wintertime is really cool, and just
Yes,
appreciate that change in seasons and see just see a different side of of the area.
right. I know tomorrow we're going to we call it the Tour de Lakes ride, and we'll take off from our trailhead and kind of take our trails over to Teal Lake and ride around part of Teal Lake and make our way over to Deer Lake, ride different sections of Deer Lake over to Cooper Lake, and make a big loop back to our trailhead. It's a lot of fun. You get to see some cool scenery and
Yeah.
stuff that you don't normally see in the summertime. you know, and conditions should be perfect with this meltdown and freeze tonight. So,
Gonna make a little crust on top to ride on.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to ask about. I mean, I think we could probably talk for hours more about the RAMBA system and the different, segments of trail and building trail and grooming and stuff. But do you have any I guess closing thoughts on RAMBA and things you're looking forward to this upcoming year? You know, any really cool trips you personally have planned or events or anything like that?
Well, one thing I get asked a lot is where do you come up with your trail section names, like Coyote Den and Dead Deer and
Yeah.
Deer Shit Loop, and it's all things that we have found on the trail as we're building that section of trail. The pickle jar, we found a pickle jar on it. Coyote Den, there was a coyote den there. Wolf scat, there was wolf droppings. That's kind of where the names came from our trails, and I get that question asked a lot. How they came up, how we came up with them, and it's pretty basic, where it came from.
Yeah.
But as far as I don't have any huge trips planned right now. I will be down in Florida sometime in March, probably to do the Huracan 300 loop again. I'd like to do that. It's a fun. You get to see parts of Florida that tourists never see. It's really kind of neat. I did it, I think 4 years ago, I guess it was, with my wife and I, and it's kind of something to see. You see a lot of alligators and
wow.
all kinds of cool stuff.
Very cool. And I would imagine you'll be hanging around for Polar Roll in February.
Yep, I'll be here till March. I'll groom until March for sure.
Okay.
I say that's till March 1st, and then after that, we take off in the van, and then I don't come back until sometime in April.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for chatting, and yeah, I really enjoyed hearing some more about kind of how that whole trail system came to be, on the west end of Marquette County here, and yeah, looking forward to getting out and riding some more myself here as conditions allow. And
yes, yeah, definitely.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks again. This has been Saturday Sauna Night with Danny Hill, Executive Director of the Range Area Mountain Bike Association, RAMBA. Thanks again, Danny.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.